Guys, you will need your whiteboards and markers. We're going to do a couple of review questions, and then I'm going to go ahead and continue with the next topic. So make sure you have your whiteboards and your markers. I see about 60 screen alone who are laying down or like swaying back and forth like, oh my gosh, I just need to move. Let's take about 30 seconds. Seriously, 30 seconds. Everyone sit up and just like run in place as fast as you can. Just, move, jumping jacks, running in place. I want to see it. Come on, get up, move. Let's move around. I saw Mark over there swaying back and forth like, oh my gosh, I can't sit still. So this is your opportunity. Go ahead, move it out, shake it out. You got about 30 seconds. Woo-hoo. Yeah, come on. This is not a dance. Miss Bragg just doesn't have any moves. Okay. All right. See, I feel better just moving already. So plus it gets the oxygen flowing to your brain, so it'll help you really concentrate on today's math lesson since we're reviewing and doing something new. So if you would please, on your whiteboards, get my little camera set up here, on your whiteboards, and if you want to put it in speaker view, then it will show my whiteboard, and I will put on your first review question. We have been working with decimals, and I think it is very important to continue to review those. So I have 5.86, that's 5 and 86 hundredths, plus 1.354, that's 1 and 354 thousandths. Go ahead and take about 90 seconds to complete this problem as a review. Go.
Anthony Nunez, sir, you need to get up out of bed. You need your whiteboard and you need to be participating, my kind sir. I can see both your arms in bed. That means you're not doing your math. And we don't tell you these things to harp on you. We don't want to nag you either. But if Mrs. Lester does come in, she will call you out or call your parents. And we're just trying to save you from that.
All righty. When you're finished, I do like to see, thank you, Sophia. Yes, you guys know the drill by now. I like to see the back of your whiteboard so that I can see that you are ready to show me an answer. We'll compare and see if we match. And when you add decimals, make sure you line up the decimals and show me your answers. 1, 2, 3, show me. Oh, what? Uh-oh, I saw one decimal in the wrong spot. Leslie, your decimals, if you're lined up, your 1.354 should be underneath. This is addition. And you have a 0 above the 4. And then when you add them all together, you should have 7.214. 7.214. I saw lots and lots of right answers. Leslie, make sure you have your decimals lined up. That means that these decimals are all in a nice, beautiful column. Okay. Another one, when we subtract decimals, same rule, when you subtract decimals, I am going to start off with 2.42, that's 2 and 42 hundredths, minus 1.432, that is 1 and 432 thousandths. Take about 90 seconds. All righty, Zachariah's ready. Thank you. Anya's ready. Adrian might be ready. Not sure. If you're standing up doing the work, that's fine. As long as you're doing the work. All right, there we have it. I see Kendallin and Darius and Michael. I'm watching. Thank you. All righty, on the count of 3. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Show me. Oh, you still have the addition problem up, Sebastian. I want to look for the subtraction problem. Yes, yes, yes. Everybody on this page has it right. If you're subtracting, 1, 3, 2. Aha, subtracting. Again, fill in that 0 at the top of the 2. And when you subtract, you will have to regroup a couple of times. And then when that all happens, then you do end up with 0.988. Okay, fantastic. You guys are doing a great job. I appreciate your efforts. Sebastian, you still have your addition problem up there, buddy. Let's go ahead and do a multiplication problem, because remember, the rules are different for adding and subtracting. So multiplying, here's your problem for multiplying. Multiplying decimals, 1.23. Someone just asked me this morning, do I have to line up the decimals to multiply? No, you do not. So I will write this one out for you so you can see it. 4.5, here you go. Multiply it. Go. I see. Yeah, multiplication takes a little bit longer than adding and subtracting. That's okay. Take your time. This is one of those times when you want to attend to precision. Make sure you're really taking your time, double checking your work and in your multiplication. All right, hopefully you've been practicing your math facts on Moby. That will also help you in your multiplication and division skills. All right. And on the count of 3, let's see. 1, 2, 3. Show me. Yep, 5.535. That's fantastic. Yes, you have 15, 11, and 6, and then you have the 0 because you're done multiplying by 5s. You have 12 and 9 and 4, and when you add all these things together, you will get 5, 5, 3, 5. And here's where you count. Count the top digit, or the top number of digits behind the decimal, the bottom number, digits behind the decimal, and the final answer is the total digits behind the decimal. There it is. Oops, sorry, 5.535. Fantastic. All right, one last problem, just to make sure you remember also how to divide and divide using a decimal. I'll put this one here. We have 6.84, and we're dividing by 0.5, or some people might say 0.5. That's no whole numbers, but you do have 0.5. All right, let's see how this one goes. Okay. Not seeing very many yet. Looks like you're still thinking. Deep thoughts on this one. Okay. No. Not enough whiteboards yet. I see you, Kira and Vincent. I know you guys are ready. Liliana, Isabella, I am just waiting for a few more students to get the answers. And okay, there you go. Whiteboard's up when you know you're done. Thank you, thank you. Jeremiah's working hard. His pencil is like flying off of that paper. All right, Gerald Jones, you got an answer too? Ethan, you got an answer? I'm looking for it. All right, here we go. On the count of three, 1, 2, 3, show me what you got. Oh my goodness gracious. Wow, you guys did a great job. You, oh, yes, you move the decimals on the outside. So once to make it a whole number. So you multiply by 10 on the outside, multiply by 10 on the inside, which means you move the decimal once on the inside and bring it above the line. Okay. I had a few people who just misplaced the decimal, but you got your answers correct. 5 goes into 6 once. That gives you 1 left over. Bring down the 8. 5 goes into 18 3 times, leaving you with 15 and a 3 at the bottom. Bring down that 4. 5 goes into 34 6 times, because 5 times 6 is 30. When you have a remainder of 4 and we're working with decimals, you do have to add that extra 0 to continue to bring down the next place value. And then you would say 5 goes into 40 8 times. Yes, final answer is 13.68 is correct. Congratulations. I see lots of right answers too. Thank you, Isabella. That was really good work. I love that you showed all of that work. All right, we have been working with decimals this whole time, and we do have to move on to other topics as well. Today we are going to start some fraction work. And I actually really enjoy today's lesson because I'm going to pick one of the easier things to do with fractions, so to speak. We're going to multiply fractions. Let's see how close I can go. Hopefully you can see this because I made it ahead of time so it would look pretty, or at least decent. All right, today we are going to multiply some fractions. And I'm just going to start off with multiplying a whole number times a fraction. All right, you got a whole number times a fraction. And what this means is if I have a number line and I just want 7 times 1/6, as you know, I could write, that's the same thing as repeated addition, or like saying 1/6 plus 1/6 plus 1/6, 7 times. Or if you were to say I have 1/6 and you have that 7 times, you could also show it on a number line. I have 1/6 times 7, so there's another 6 and another 6 and another and another and another and another. So now I have, you started 1/6 and now you have 7/6, 7/6. So if I had 1/6 and I added that together 7 times, you would actually have 7/6 altogether, because it's just a shorter way of writing down all of this nonsense here. So I put 7 of them on my paper, but nobody really wants to do that in order to get 7/6. We're going to find a shortcut way to multiply fractions. I'll show you again, even when the top number is not a 1. If you start off with 2/3 and you need 4 of those, you go from 0 to 2/3. That's your first 2/3. And then you're going to keep adding those 2/3 like 4 times. So there's one more time, once, twice, 3 times, and 4 times. When you get 4 times the 2/3, you're going to land on 8/3. Or again, same thing as saying, when you add 2/3 plus 2/3 and you do that 4 times, it gets too redundant. It's too much writing. I like shortcuts. That's my favorite thing. I'm going to find a shortcut for this to find out my 8/3. Okay. If you notice, there's a little bit of a pattern developing here, and the bottom number, remember, when you add fractions, the bottom number stays the same because you're talking about the same amounts. You're talking about thirds here. The top number is what changes. So if you have 4 2/3, 4 times 2/3, you have 4 of those, you're really just multiplying this top number in order to get the answer. Now, let's look at one more example here. I have this problem. It says, what is 1/4 of 1/2? Now we're getting into some real serious business, talking about multiplying a fraction times a fraction. Well, the best way I can show you is by giving you a little bit of a visual here. If you want 1/4 of something, 1/4 of a half, first thing you have to do is start out with a half. I'm just going to take the sticky note and tear it in half. Okay, there we go. I have a sticky note. I tore it in half. All right. Now I just want 1/4 of that half. I just want 1/4 of it. So if I'm talking about the half and I just want 1/4 of that half, I could cut it into fourths here. Okay, there's 4 equal parts. There's my fourth of 4 equal parts. And I just want 1/4. So I'm going to color in this 1/4. Okay, so 1 out of 4. And that represents my 1/4. Now, if you're talking about 1/4 out of the entire half, okay, that means that this side also would have to be fourths. I would cut this half also into fourths. So the question is, how many fourths are actually shaded in if you're talking about this whole thing again? So I have 1/8 shaded in because I have 8 pieces all together if I put the whole sticky note back together again. So if I have 1/4 of 1/2, I really only have 1/8 of the whole thing shaded in. Okay, so is anyone seeing a little bit of a pattern here developing? Sorry, my glare here. Is anybody seeing a bit of a pattern developing here and whenever you see the multiplication? Maybe I see a couple heads being nodded, yes. Here's the pattern. The pattern is you multiply the top number times the top number, you get the top number. You multiply the bottom number times the bottom number, you get the bottom number. And that is the shortcut, honestly. The word of means times. Okay, of means times. So anytime you see the word of, you're going to multiply. Just like when you say the word is, 2 plus 2 is 4. Is means equals. So mathematical terminology there, of means times. So plain and simple, 1/4 of 1/2 is 1/8. Okay. And hopefully this is a nice little review too for your multiplication facts. I actually have a kind of a fun way to practice today. Hopefully this will work for us. But let's do a couple problems on your whiteboards just to make sure you know your multiplication facts. Let's see, I'll zoom in here and go with, get those whiteboards out. We're going to go 2/3 times 1/5 and show me what you got. As soon as you're done, just hold up your whiteboards. I have a hard time with this. All righty. You got 2/3 times 1/5, and the count of 3 I want to see. 1, 2, 3, show me. This is mostly just checking your multiplication facts. Make sure you know those multiplication facts. Yep, all righty. Very good. And Zachariah, I see you stretching, but not necessarily doing math. I'm watching you. All right, yes, 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 5 is 15. and that is the basic multiplication of fractions. Let's do one or two more, and then I am going to put you on a practice. And I think, I hope you will enjoy today's practice. Okay. All right, let's take up numbers here. How about 3/4 times 3/8? Yeah. All right, 1, 2, 3, show me. Oh yeah, you got this. As long as you got your multiplication facts down, you are golden. You've got your 9/30 seconds there, 9/32. And of course, there's more difficult ways to do this. We'll talk more about that tomorrow, about simplifying fractions and also working with mixed numbers and such. But for today, I have a game I want you to practice with. It's a game. And I'm going to, it's called Math Playground. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it. I'm going to paste it in a couple of places. First thing I'm going to do is paste it here in the chat. If you just want to copy it and put it into a new tab so that you can practice for about the next 10 minutes. And this is a practice on multiplying with fractions. And like I said, we'll make it more complicated tomorrow, but today I want you to feel good about your multiplication facts. So if you can go to this Math Playground, it's a game called Snow Sprint, and it is simply multiplying fractions for today. And you can join the game against the computer and solve as many problems as you can in this Snow Sprint. I will also put a link on your Google Classroom just so you can have another quick access to it, or an easier access to it. And this one is just for today. I like to try to switch it up a little bit sometimes. Classwork, I'm just going to post this real quick at the top. And add a website. Okay. All right. There you go. If you want another way to get to it quickly, if it's not working, if you're not able to cut and paste, come on. Post. It's taking a while to post. There we go. Multiply fractions game. I'm going to turn the chat on. Oops, I'm going to put the video back on myself.
And go to joinpd.com. Today's code is on the screen, WSQQC. WSQQC. And we're going to wrap up our conversation on transitions today. And then a couple other things I want to go over this week, and then next week will be our first assigned essay. So Want to try to prepare us for that. Joinpd.com. Today's code WSQQC. Also, the topic of next week's essay is going to involve science. So for those of you who are science fans, you will have an opportunity to write about something science related. Okay, we'll take about 30 seconds and then we'll jump into today's lesson. And so if there is something that you are dying to write about that relates to science, think about it, because we are going to, we're going to be brainstorming some topics a little bit later as well. So I'd like to give you an opportunity to sound off on that. Okay, let's go ahead and start here. So today we're talking about grouping sentences, but before we get started, so true or false, transition words and phrases help link ideas together. Is that true or false for the most part? Transition words and phrases help link ideas together. Yes, true. So transition words and phrases, they help us, they can show us a number of different things. So they can show a sequence. So first, second, next, then, after that. Or there can also be transition words that, that will move us from one idea or concept to another, like fortunately or unfortunately. But those are transition words and phrases that help us link our ideas together. So again, here's an example of some of those transition words that we talked about. And these are ones that we're accustomed to: first, next, after that, then, and then unfortunately, fortunately. To sum up, there's a number of different transition words and phrases. And a lot of those transition words and phrases relate to whatever type of writing that we're doing. So when we start doing, right now, we're working largely on expository writing. So when we move into persuasive writing, you're going to see and notice some different transition words and phrases, and the same with narrative. When we start writing stories and doing that, there's a number of different transition words and phrases that we use to link our story together. So today what we're going to do is we're going to group sentences with embedded transitions. You'll notice that that word embedded is underlined there. And if you don't know what the word embedded means, it essentially means that it's built in or it's hidden in some way. So it's not one of those things that we would look at on the page and go, oh, first, comma, there's a transition word. An embedded transition, it's a lot more subtle. It's there, you have to look at it, but it's there. So today we're going to look at sentences, and we're going to group sentences with embedded transitions. So embedded transitions are the hallmark of good writers, of mature writers. So it's one of those things that just comes with practice. Occasionally people have a good idea or a good understanding of how to do it, but it's one of those things that's just sort of built over time. When it's practiced, you find yourself using fewer and fewer of those obvious transition words and phrases. So that's what we're going to look at right now. So today's lesson is going to be quick. Okay, so let me explain this one, and then you are going to start doing some clicking and some dragging. There are 7 sentences altogether. So what you're looking at on the screen here is a scrambled up paragraph, essentially, or the first 4 sentences of a 7-sentence paragraph. What I want you to do is I want you to click and drag the appropriate number where you think it belongs. So of these 4 sentences listed here, his first job was teaching science to 6th graders. His former students recall the day he came to class dressed as a mad scientist with a new hypothesis to prove. During his time in the classroom, he focused on making learning interesting and fun for students. Mr. Simpson has been in education for 32 years. What I want you to do is I want you to click and drag which of these sentences you believe should go first. Click and drag the 2 to what you feel the second sentence should be, and then 3, and then 4. Okay, so go ahead and take, I'll give you a minute and a half. So of these 4 sentences, which one is first, which one is second, which one is third, which one is fourth? Simply click and drag the number on the appropriate sentence. Okay, take another 15 seconds here. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, interesting, interesting. Let's see where we have a preponderance of ones. It looks like Mr. Simpson has been in education for 32 years. Okay, that's gonna give me a headache if I look at that. So it looked like a preponderance of the ones were right down here. Mr. Simpson has been in education for 32 years. So I'm going to read this in an order that makes sense, and we'll see if we all agree here. Mr. Simpson has been in education for 32 years. His first job was teaching science to 6th graders. During his time in the classroom, he focused on making learning interesting and fun for students. His former students recall the day he came to class dressed as a mad scientist with a new hypothesis to prove. So if I had to go one way or the other, Mr. Simpson has been in education for 32 years. That would be sentence 1. His first job was teaching science to 6th graders. This would be 2. During his time in the classroom, he focused on making learning interesting and fun for students would be 3. His former students recall the day he came to class dressed as a mad scientist with a new hypothesis to prove. So 2, 4, 3, 1. 2, 4, 3, 1. Now, the reason that I had these 2 right here, during his time in the classroom, he focused on making learning interesting and fun for students. this is more of a topic sentence. His former students recall the day he came to class dressed as a mad scientist with a new hypothesis to prove. This is really a supporting detail for this sentence here. So that's why I had this one first. So Mr. Simpson has been in education for 32 years. His first job was teaching science to 6th graders. During his time in the classroom, he focused on making learning interesting and fun for students. His former students recall the day he came dressed as a mad scientist with a new hypothesis to prove. Okay? So if that's what you had, 2, 4, 3, 1, I think you are right on target there. Okay, let's move on. So now, just to be clear, what we're going to look at now are the final 3 sentences for this same paragraph. So I could only fit so many slides on one paragraph. So now what we're about to look at are the final 3 sentences for this paragraph. Okay, so you'll notice numbers 5, 6, and 7. Go ahead and arrange those in the order you feel is correct. Okay, take about 30 more seconds. When Mr. Simpson retires this year, we will all miss him. However, the lessons he taught will remain with us for years to come. After teaching for 20 years, Mr. Simpson decided to go back to school and get a degree in administration. Terrible idea, Mr. Simpson. When he completed his degree, he became principal of Reedsville Senior High School. So these are the final 3 sentences of the paragraph. How would you arrange those? All right, let's take a look. Interesting. Okay, here's the way I see it. After teaching for 20 years, Mr. Simpson decided to go back to school and get a degree in administration. This would be 5. When he completed his degree, he became principal of Reedsville Senior High School. This would be 6. 7, the concluding sentence. When Mr. Simpson retires this year, we will all miss him. However, the lessons he taught will remain with us for years to come. So 5, 6, and then 7. That would be the order that I would go. So now what I want to do is I want to go back and take a look at these transitions just very, very quickly. So many of you ordered these sentences correctly. And if you'll notice, there's very much a sequence to this, an order, a logic to it, but it isn't the first, next, it isn't super sequential. So Mr. Simpson has been in education for 32 years, right? So we have the subject, we know who we're talking about, and we know how long that Mr. Simpson's been in education. His first job, right? That's going to be our clue, even though it doesn't begin with first. We're talking about his first job, was teaching science to 6th graders. During his time in the classroom, he focused on making learning fun and interesting for students. So we know that this was relating to his first job teaching. And then here we have a supporting detail. His former students recall him as a mad scientist. So those are the transitions for that group of sentences. And then after teaching for 20 years. So again, we've got after here. So that's telling us after he was done teaching, he decided to go back to get his degree in administration. When he completed his degree. So again, there's another natural sort of embedded transition that, that is the next logical idea here, next step in this particular paragraph. When he completed his degree, he became principal of Reedsville Senior High School. When Mr. Simpson retires this year, we will all miss him. However, the lessons he taught will remain with us forever. So you'll notice that there's a lot of those transition type words, but they're built into phrases. And as long as you're paying attention to the sequence of those, you are pretty much good to go. So this is, I like for things to be as concrete as possible when I'm teaching, to give you some really hard examples of what we're doing and how to do it. But embedded transitions is one of those things that it's simple, but it can be kind of tricky. Like you really have to look and make sure that you're paying attention to the sequence of what's happening in a paragraph or a group of sentences, sort of like we did just now. So if you get stuck, your number one job as a writer is to be clear. So a lot of people think that, oh, well, if I'm writing sentences, those are baby sentences and I'm a bad writer. Nope. Your number one job as a writer is to be clear. So if you write something, I should be able to read it and understand it. Anyone should be able to read it and understand it. And one idea per sentence is a great rule to abide by. So embedded transitions, one of those things that's a little sophisticated, it's a little more advanced, and over time you'll find yourself doing it, and it is certainly the hallmark of a good writer. So here's what I want you to do right now. I want you to take a minute. Yesterday, Mr. Mullen was talking about mindset when we were doing the reading, and sort of there was one article that he discussed that talked about the importance of mistakes. Obviously, none of us want to make a mistake because, you know, we sort of feel goofy when we do, but mistakes are really a huge, huge key to learning. So here's what I want you to do right now. If you got those sentences, if you ordered those sentences correctly, what was your strategy? What did you do to order the sentences correctly? And good for you. If you got it right on the first try, Outstanding. I want to know what your train of thought was, what you were thinking when you organized those sentences. Conversely, if you misordered those sentences, I'm not really worried about it. What I am worried about is whether or not you figured out what you did incorrectly. So describe what you missed and how did you discover the correct way? What did you hear? What did you see that made you realize, oh, okay, yeah, I see what I did. I see what I did wrong. So go ahead and take about 3 minutes. And if you ordered all of those sentences correctly, what were you thinking? How did you do it? And if you misordered those sentences, what was the, how did you figure it out? What came to your mind? How did you discover that, oh, this is what I did wrong? About half of us are done. I'm going to give us an additional minute here to finish. So 9:46. And don't worry, I'm not leaving the building. I'm just getting a book. I'll be right back. Okay, take another minute. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my my screen here, and I want to I'm going to take a look at some of these responses. My strategy was to read and reread the sentences. That is a great strategy, and I believe that that is one of the 7 habits of highly effective readers as well. So very good. I thought about what order each sentence would be in and kept reading over to check my answers and to check if I ordered them correctly. I used 2 of the habits of highly effective readers. Holy smokes. I don't need to be teaching this. Whoever wrote that needs to be teaching this. Good work. I read the sentence carefully, I made sense of it, and I put it in order the way the story would go. I visualize and rewrite it in order. Outstanding. Very good. I made a mistake when it said degree. I figured out my problem. The sentence is connected. Okay. Okay. My strategy was to read the sentences first, then I figured out which one goes first, but I got a few wrong. Okay. Now the next step would be why? Why did I get that wrong? That's the conversation that I find really interesting. And that's where we make our gains. My strategy to order the sentences correctly was to read through the sentences and then put them together to see how to put the sentences together to make the sentences make sense. Okay. All right. My thought was that was the most interesting and not interesting fact. Then it was rereading, good. Then I looked for a weak fact, then a good fact. Right. Okay. Not too bad. Not too bad. What I did to order the sentences correctly by reading all of them, and that helps me figure out which one should go. Right? I messed up on number 4. I figured out how I did it wrong because it looked like it was a topic sentence. Okay, good. As long as you were able to determine the difference, good. I use the read and reread strategy. Beautiful. You know, I love the way that you guys are tying together the reading and the writing. Mr. Mull and I were talking about this yesterday, and how much there is a book, and there's a couple of books I want to talk about right now. There's a book called Writing to Learn by William Zinsser, and talking about how what makes writing so important is that it is thinking. Writing is very much thinking, and if you can think, you're going to do fine. And there's all kinds of research that shows that students who write well think well, and when they think well, they perform well on just about any kind of test, any kind of task that you can think of. So that is pretty much it. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen here. All right. Share. Okay. So good job on this. So what did we learn today? Well, we learned how to group sentences with embedded transitions, which means that they're not those obvious ones that just immediately jump out at us, like first, second, then, next, in conclusion. These are a little bit more subtle. They're embedded transitions. So that is what we learned today. So go ahead in 1 minute, and I do mean 1 minute. I'm going to put the timer on. 1 minute, write the most important thing from today's lesson. 60 seconds. Okay, 30 seconds remaining. Okay. I am going to stop sharing here. All right. So what I want to do right now is I am going to post something in a Google Classroom where I'm going to give you an opportunity. If there is a science related topic that you want to write about next week, I'm going to let you post that in Google Classroom. And then I'm going to take three of your topics, and then we'll vote on which one that we want to write. So it could be anything. It could be on recycling. It could be on fossil fuels. It could be even something like, this is one of my favorite books. I didn't really get into science until much later in life, when it was taught to me a little bit differently, or I started reading on my own. Suddenly I wasn't just memorizing all 206 bones in the human body in Mr. Fisher's biology class. Sorry, Mr. Fisher, RIP, by the way. He was a good guy. But this is a book called Napoleon's Buttons. And Napoleon's Buttons is subtitled 17 Molecules That Changed History. So it talks about all of these different molecules that changed the course of history in some way. And so one of my favorites is, my mother is British. Like, she didn't come to the United States until she was 14. And so for those of you who are unfamiliar with Great Britain, it's an island. And at one point they had the world's most powerful navy. And before airplanes and all that stuff, sailing the seas was the primary mode of transportation. And there were several diseases when sailors would go out and they would go on these long journeys. They were sort of being stricken with these diseases, and one of them was scurvy. And so it just did all of these, bleeding gums, sickness, like all of these terrible things that were these symptoms that were associated with scurvy. Scurvy, you don't hear about it anymore because we know that the cure for that is vitamin C. So, but for years and years, these sailors would go out on these journeys and end up dying. They would literally find these ghost ships on the ocean where all the sailors were dead from scurvy. And then once they find, there was one particular sailor in England who kept a clean ship, and he would give his sailors sort of like a little dose of lemon juice, just enough to sort of keep the scurvy away or whatever. But they didn't understand how important that was until years later. So that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about with science. That science isn't just about memorizing. It's not about doing all of these things. There's so much that that goes into it. So it's not just memorizing or looking under a microscope. Those are all certainly parts of it, but there's other parts of it as well. So we've got about 5 minutes, and I want you to
questions about the scores, because it gave you the score as soon as you got done. If you got 100%, way to go. Awesome. If you missed one, that's still good. If you missed two, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Well, you've learned the two that you didn't know by now. 3, which would be 14 out of 20. It's all right. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just in the middle. Okay. Everything below that, you should have known more, I think, in my opinion. And so that just gives you an idea of where we're at. Okay. Because I got lots of questions about that. So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to read a book together. I'm going to share my screen with you, but I want to show the book to you before we do that. The book is called Math Made Me Sick. No, I'm sorry. I'm reading it backwards. On my screen, it's backwards. I go, Math Made Me Sick.
Hey, thanks, Mr. Muller.
That's a slam it too. I'm sure you think that. It's not. It was totally a mistake. It says, what made me sick? Okay? And it's an anthology. This is the whole thing. It's an anthology. And that's going to be when we get past our vocabulary 2, which is going to be fairly quick, be after tomorrow. Anthology is going to be one of our words. An anthology is a book that has a collection of articles or a collection of stories revolving around one theme, okay? The theme this time, of course, is, or the topic is, what made me sick? What made me sick? Okay, now I'm going to share with you my screen. No, I'm not yet. Hold on a second. Okay. There it is. And I'm going to go here. What made me sick? Okay. And the first article we're going to read is this: can we be too clean? Now, what's the first thing we do when we come to a book is that we're going to practice our strategies, our tools over and over again. We're going to practice them till they just natural to you, till they become habits. The first one is survey. So look at this. What made me sick? What do you notice? The title is a question. Okay? They're helping us right out of the gate, because in the survey, we want to start collecting questions that are made, that we may make our own questions. What made me sick? Can we be too clean? And that's the title of our first article we're going to read. Now, it's not very long. It's not a very long article, but it has some really big clues on these first two pages, pages 2 and 3. It has the title. It has a picture on the right. Where have we seen things like that before? Maybe you've seen this. It's a picture of some kind of virus or some kind of germ taken with a high-powered electroscope, a microscope. And we can kind of see what those germs, what those viruses look like. Well, right now, we're kind of in that period where we're beset with such a virus. What's it called? The virus that's why we're not in school right now. I mean, in the school building. It's called COVID-19, right? Looks very similar to this, and you've seen pictures of it maybe on TV when they're talking about it. Okay? We also have a subtitle down here. Can being clean be too much of a good thing? That's another question. We have a bold word right here, immune system. Your immune system protects your body from diseases and infections. And we have a definition right here. Go to the second page, and this is the end. That's the whole article right here. But we see a younger girl, and she's using what is called an inhaler. Some of you guys have inhalers. Some of us teachers have inhalers. Why would we have that? Because maybe we're suffering with something that's inhibiting our breathing. Our breathing. And that medicine, which we take into our lungs, helps us to breathe. Then it has a little cutout or question, a paragraph, an extra paragraph. It's not quite it can't be a caption, it's too much, but it shows a mom holding a, what do you call that? Pacifier? In our family, we call them binkies for some reason. I don't know where that came from. Maybe you call it a special name or something. But mom's holding it in her mouth, and she's giving it to the mouth of her child. There's a reason why that picture is like that. It's not just to be cute. There's some science behind it. That's right. We are looking at something that has to do with science, okay? The way the physical world works. Well, before we go too far, I want you to look at, and I'm going to go stop my share real quick. And I want us to look at two words, because these are words that we're going to have to deal with as we read these texts. Read this text. Now, I'm afraid it's going to be reversed. Is it backwards? Oh, it isn't for you, it's just for me. Backwards.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Immune up top and then symptoms on the bottom.
Thank you. I was having a hard time reading it for a second.
Math makes me sick.
I'm sorry. Oh my gosh. The first word is immune. Immune means that we are resistant to some sort of disease or allergen or something which would cause us to be sick. Immune. The second word is symptoms. That is the things, those symptoms are those things that we suffer as we are sick. For instance, if I have a cold, I might feel really, really hot, or my nose might be congested. Those are symptoms, okay? Both of these words are words we're going to have to recognize and use as we go throughout this reading. I'm going to share my screen again, okay? Here we go. So what we want to do is we're going to practice use one of our tools, use one of our strategies, and after we read 3 different times, I'm going to ask you to do a stop, think, paraphrase. And you're going to need your marker and your whiteboard, because we're going to see how you respond to this and how we do it. This is a fairly high lexile. It's a hard text. Science typically is harder for us to read than something like a novel or even social studies, because the language, the vocabulary is elevated. It's higher. But if we can deal with the vocabulary, we can understand it. So let's pay attention. I'm going to read. I'm going to ask you some questions as we go through. And at the end of pages 3, 4, and 5, we're going to do an STP. Okay? Stop, think, paraphrase. Remember what paraphrase means. Put it in your own words. Okay, let's begin. Cats make Jessica's eyes water, and she can't stop sneezing when she's around them. Read with me, please. Jason is allergic to house dust. He goes to the doctor for allergy shots. Sarah has hay fever every spring. Angel has an asthma attack whenever his allergies flare up. Although they all have different allergies and different symptoms, their problem is the same. Their immune systems can't tell the difference between harmless things like plant pollen and harmful germs that cause disease. There are germs everywhere, in water, in the air, on food plants and animals. Most germs will not hurt you. Your immune system works hard to protect you from germs that invade your body. Here's how. There are some white blood cells that make antibodies, okay. The antibodies grab onto invading germs. They mark the germs to be killed or removed from the blood. All antibodies fall into one of 5 main types. Each type has a job to do. One type is called IgE, pronounced IgE, just like it's spelled. Sometimes parasites such as roundworms or hookworms get into your body and make you sick. IgE is good at fighting these parasites. Okay, what's a parasite? A parasite is an organism that lives in or on another organism. Okay, he mentions 2, or she mentions 2, the author mentions 2, roundworms and hookworms, which get into our body and do make us sick. IgE is good at fighting these parasites, but IgE can cause trouble. The immune system can mistake harmless things like cat dander or house dust for a parasite. Then it makes too much IgE. Your nose will make thick liquid called mucus. You could have a runny or stuffy nose. You could sneeze or cough. Sometimes this can also lead to an asthma attack. These are all symptoms of allergies. So, STP. I want you to take your, I want you to take your whiteboard. I'm going to leave this up for a little bit. And I want you to write one sentence that captures what these 2 pages are about. Stop, think about it, then paraphrase and put it in your own words. Do your best. Let's see how we do. 1 minute, go. You should be writing on your whiteboards right now. When you get an answer, hold it up. Make sure your answer starts with a capital letter. Make sure it ends with the correct punctuation. About 15 more seconds, then I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then we'll look and see what we have for an answer. Thank you, Angel, for holding yours up. I see that. Good job. Okay. Good. Hold them up for me as soon as you get it done. Let me see what you have. Liliana, can you turn it around so I can see it? Okay. Now I see lots of, you guys are all saying, everything you're saying is true. And the article talks about these things, okay? For instance, talks about all types of germs. It does, doesn't it? It does, yes. People have immune systems to protect you from germs. Absolutely. It's talking about that. These 2 pages are about allergies and how you moved it. Priscilla, I can't read the end if you keep on moving it. I need to see some more about how people have them. Good. Kiara, most germs will not hurt you. That's true. Now, the thing is, the thing about this is everything we're writing, you guys picked up out of the article, and that's good, but they're details, okay? They're just a little bit of the article, right? And we want to get a big picture of what the article is about. So at the very, very beginning, it asks a question. And what is that question? Can we be too clean, right? Okay. Can we have too much of a good thing? Well, too much of a good thing, what are we talking about? And they're talking about antibodies. Because if we get too many antibodies in our body, they start fighting the wrong things. You see that? So we're doing good. Look, one of the things that we might do if we're getting just details, you might cut it back down so you start chunking. Remember that other tool, that other strategy we talked about? So instead of doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs, we might just do 1 or 2 or maybe 3, okay? So we're going to use that chunking. Let's try it again after page 4. I'm going to share with you again my screen. Okay? And here's page 4. Not dirty enough. The number of people with allergies and asthma is rising. Scientists once thought the reason was air pollution. In the 1990s, a German scientist studied 2 groups of children. One lived in West Germany. There, the air was clean. The other group lived in East Germany, where the air was not clean, and it was a much dirtier place to live. The researcher expected that the East German children to have more allergies and asthma. But the opposite was true. The East German children had fewer allergies and less asthma than the West German ones. This study led to a new theory about cleanliness. Some experts now think that being exposed to harmless germs may be necessary to teach the immune system what's harmful and what isn't. Perhaps the immune system of a child who grows up too clean makes IgE when it shouldn't. Now remember what IgE does? It attacks parasites, right? But if we get too much IgE in our body, it will attack other things like pollen or cat dander, cat hair, okay? And cause you to have an allergy. So, real quick, STP, stop, think, paraphrase, tell me what's on page 4. I'm going to leave it up there for about a minute and a half, then we'll start looking at our answers. 1 sentence is all you have to have. What is the main idea of page 4? Go ahead and write it on your whiteboards. Okay, about 30 seconds. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing my board and I wanna see your whiteboards up in the screen. This time I'm gonna call on somebody who maybe, just somebody who may not be paying attention, just one person, okay? Oh, I like some of your answers. Huh. Kiara, I like that, that's really simple. She has some allergies depend on where people live. Absolutely. That study did show that, but it was surprising what it showed because East Germany had dirty air and they had less asthma. Does that make sense? Maybe. Let's see. Alexis, I want to see yours. Can you put it a little closer? It talks about scientists prove that you can be too clean and get allergies, so we kind of need germs. Yeah, that's kind of what it's leading to, isn't it? And Aaron, can you lift yours up a little bit higher? Not that close because all I see is the word allergies. Okay, the summary for this is the people with allergies and asthma are getting worse. You know what? I can see why you'd think that, but maybe not. Looking at Priscilla, the main idea is that we are not dirty enough because we are too clean. We could get, I can't read that last word, allergies. Okay, good. Okay, let me see, anybody else? Let me see. Some people, and I'm looking at you, Zanaya, some people who are clean get less sick. People who are getting dirt, people who are dirty get more sickness. That's not what it was saying, though. You know, that's what I think, and I think that's a good guess. But the article actually said almost the opposite. People get allergies because we're too clean. Some people have more germs and some have less. That being a little birdie, I like this one by Michael. Being a little dirty isn't that bad. Good job, okay? So let's read, and I'm going to share with you again one more time. Go ahead and erase your boards, and we're going to read page 5. Okay, read it together with me. Other studies show that this theory may be true. What theory was we talking about? Perhaps the last sentence of chapter 4. Perhaps the immune system of a child who grows up too clean makes IgE when it shouldn't. Now, we're on the top of page 5. Other studies show that this theory may be true. Children who live on farms have fewer cases of asthma than city kids. Being exposed to the harmless germs from farm animals may help. Researchers found that babies who were around dogs and cats had a lower risk of allergies, not only to animals, but also to pollen and dust. The researchers think the harmless germs that pets carry may help a baby's immune system. We don't know if all of this is true, but research continues. Maybe someday we'll learn how to prevent allergies. Maybe we just need to give a child's immune system the right education. So this time I want you to answer a question. How can we give the immune system a good education? What's that mean? See, we're kind of using symbolic language at the end, but this whole article is about how to teach your immune system to recognize that which is good and that which is bad. Okay? So, real quick, how can we teach? This is not an STP this time, but this is for the whole article. How can we teach the immune system to know that which is good and that which is bad? What does the research suggest? Go ahead. You have 1 minute, 30 seconds. Write it on your board. I saw someone with a good answer. Carolina? Yeah. You can expose a person to germs. Not be so afraid of some germs. Good. When you get your answer, put it up. I want to see it. Lucian, I think I'm going to call on you next. Have you been paying attention? You haven't even been in your seat. Come on, let's go. Okay, I should be seeing some whiteboards by now. Okay. There are some, and I like this, Abel, there are some harmless germs that we need. Carly, if you have really bad allergies, try not to go around the place that has a lot of dust and pollen. That's true. That's what it does say that in there. That's not the main idea, and that's not how we would teach our immune system. Anyone can get exposed and not all germs are bad. Okay? See, I want to know why some germs are not bad. What do they do that's beneficial? We can teach this is Jaslyn, we can teach our immune system what is good and bad by being near animals or exposing ourselves to air with pollen, air with dirt, right? Absolutely, you hit it. I like how you wrote it too. You can improve your system by exposing it to good and bad germs. Eat healthy to build up your immune system. That's true, but it's not in the article, okay? You're making a connection though, I like that. You can help your immune system by teaching it by getting exposed to harmless germs. Absolutely, Chloe, right on. Miss Aguilar, can you hold it up a little? There you go. It may cause you to have to make your immune system stronger and how to fight germs. Good. You can educate, this is by Raya, you can educate your immune systems to know what is good and bad by exposing it to harmful things. That's right. You know, that's what the research says, according to this. Now, I want us to read one last. Everybody put down your whiteboards now. And you're not going to need them again, I don't think, so you can just relax. But there's this little cutout down below that I think is really interesting that I think we should read and think about. Could a mother's spit help develop a child's immune system? A group of researchers studied the effects of parents putting their child's pacifier in their own mouths to clean it after it dropped onto the floor. The study found that the harmless bacteria from the parent's mouth helped the child build up its defenses to allergies. The scientists found that children whose parents had the habit of sucking a pacifier clean had fewer allergies than children whose parents had cleaned the pacifier with soap and water when it was dropped. Now, thumbs up or thumbs down, okay? Stop and share. But if that surprises you, put thumbs up. Put thumbs up if that surprises you. It surprises me. I can't believe it, that that's true. It's only been this last year that I have seen that actually being done. One of my daughter-in-laws who has a young child, when the child was a baby, she's an infant now, she's 2. But when she was small, not walking, every once in a while, she'd put her pacifier in her mouth to clean it off. And I thought it was weird. But she had read the research, okay? So, 2 more things and then we're done, okay? I want you to look at this word. This is a word that we have used in this reading and a word that we might hear quite often today. And the word is antibodies. Antibodies. The word has a prefix, anti, A-N-T-I, which is actually a Greek root that means against. It means to be against, okay? Antibodies are those things that we have in our body that fight foreign substances such as germs. Okay, antibodies. What I want you to do is, I want you to take the prefix, A-N-T-I, and make a new word. For instance, you can't use this one, anti-learning, okay? That would be a person who is against learning, anti-learning. So I want you to make up one word. Just make up one word. I said you weren't going to use your whiteboard. Yeah, you are. I lied to you. Sorry. Use your whiteboard, anti-something, and then hold it up for me. I want to see it. New word. Maybe it's a real word. Maybe it's a word that you just made up, but I want to see it. Anti what? Aaron, do you have yours done? Antibacteria. Okay, good, Angel. Anti-flowers. I don't know. Anti-meat. Okay, anti-trash. Good. Anti-distance learning. That's good. Anti-germs. Anti-germs. Antisocial. That's actually a real word. That means that you are shy and that you don't really like being in social situations. Anti-dirt, anti-gravity. That's a real word. Anti-glitter. Good. I like these. Anti-sleep. Anti-surfing. Anti-formula. You get the idea. Anticlimactic. What a great word, Nathan. There is such a word as anticlimactic, anti-coronavirus, absolutely. If there isn't a word anti-coronavirus, there ought to be. Good job. Anti-food, anti-work, anti-messes. Okay, you guys get the idea. Okay. Tomorrow you're going to have a test over those vocabulary words. Okay, and we're going to read more in that anthology.